Hello everyone, I am Abratom. In this video lecture, I will explain temperature regulation in humans. Thermoregulation is a process by which body maintains its core internal temperature within a narrow range despite fluctuations in the external environment. Here are important terms. Core temperature is the temperature of the deep tissues of the body. For example, temperature in the abdomen, in the thoracic cavity, and the normal set point is approximately 37 degrees Celsius. And shell temperature is the temperature of the skin, subcutaneous tissues, and the extremities. And these fluctuate significantly with fluctuations of temperature in the external environment. Heat balance is just when heat production and heat loss equals. The body produces heat through metabolic processes and exchanges energy with the environment as mechanical. In humans, the chief physiological thermoregulatory responses are secretion of sweat, which removes heat from the skin as it evaporates, the control of skin blood flow, which governs flow of heat to the skin from the stress of the body, and increasing metabolic heat production in cold conditions. The reasons why body temperature should be maintained within the normal range is that one is for the normal activity of the enzymes, the second is for normal neuronal activity, and the third is because high temperature causes denaturation of proteins. So to prevent from denaturation of proteins and cell death, maintenance of body temperature or balancing heat loss and heat gain is crucial for survival. The mechanisms of heat production in the body include basal metabolism, muscular activity, and hormonal thermogenesis. The normal metabolic activities of cells in the body, particularly in the liver, in the brain, in the heart, and other internal organs, produces heat. Muscular activity. Voluntary contraction of skeletal muscles during exercise significantly increases heat production up to 20 times the basal rate. And involuntary contraction of skeletal muscles, that is shivering, is an involuntary response where muscle contractions generate heat without any external work. It can increase heat production up to 4 to 5 times the normal basal rate. And the third is hormonal thermogenesis. Thyroid hormones, which are responsible for increase in overall metabolism in our body, increase heat production. And sympathetic nervous system, by releasing epinephrine and norepinephrine, can cause non-shivering thermogenesis, especially by activating the bone adipose tissue. This is important in children, but since it was thought that bone adipose tissue was only significant in newborns, but recent research shows that metabolically active bone adipose tissue exists and plays a role in production of heat in adults also. But in the newborns, bone adipose tissue is the most important heat producing mechanism. And the mechanisms of heat loss include radiation, conduction, convection, and evaporation. Radiation is transfer of heat through the infrared rays, so the body radiates heat to cooler objects and absorbs from warmer ones. And conduction is directly transfer from warmer objects to a cooler objects. For example, sitting on a cold bench, so heat is transferred from the person to the cold bench. And convection is heat transfer to air or water currents moving across the body surface. Evaporation is heat loss through the conversion of water or sweat to a vapor. Now, the role of hypothalamus in the regulation of temperature. Hypothalamus is the body's thermostat center. is the main regulator of body temperature. The anterior hypothalamus, which is known for heat losing function, the preoptic area contains high concentration of warm sensitive neurons. So when core temperature rises, the neurons in the anterior hypothalamus are activated and they trigger heat loss mechanisms like vasodilation and sweating. The posterior hypothalamus, which is also known for its heat gaining activity, acts as the primary integration center. It receives signals from warm and cold receptors throughout the body, and when the body temperature drops, it activates heat producing and heat conserving mechanisms, vasoconstriction and shivering. So the posterior hypothalamus is the heat gaining center, and the anterior hypothalamus is heat losing center. The role of skin and blood flow. The skin is primary effector organ for the thermoregulation via the cutaneous vasodilation and cutaneous vasoconstriction. When body temperature is too warm, the hypothalamus inhibits sympathetic nervous systems that innervate the blood vessels of the skin. So when the vasoconstrictor tone is inhibited, this causes arteries in the skin to dilate and significantly increasing blood flow to the skin. So blood is shunted from the internal organs to the dilated arteries in the skin. And warm blood from the core is shunted to the skin surface, increasing heat loss via radiation and convection. And other is the cutaneous vasoconstriction. When body temperature is low or when our body is cold, the hypothalamus activates the sympathetic nervous system, and this causes arteries in the skin to constrict, reducing blood flow to the shell and shunting the blood to the internal organs, and this minimizes heat loss, conserving warmth for the core. And the role of sweating in controlling body temperature. Evaporation of sweat is highly effective cooling mechanism. Increased body temperature triggers the hypothalamic control centers to stimulate high sympathetic cholinergic fibers that innervate the sweat glands. Sweat is a dilute solution of water, sodium chloride, urea, and lactic acid, and each gram of water that evaporates from the skin removes approximately 0.58 kilocalories of heat. So when our body is warm, the sympathetic nervous system sends two separate signals, one to the skin blood vessels and the other to the sweat glands. The sympathetic signal that is sent to the sweat glands is excitatory. It increases sweating. The neurons are cholinergic. They release acetylcholine. Now acetylcholine binds the muscarinic receptors and then it increases sweating and heat loss. But the other signal of the sympathetic nervous system in response to increase in body temperature is inhibitory to the sympathetic uh, tone that innervates the blood vessels of the skin. So when the sympathetic neurons that innervate the blood vessels that supply blood to the skin are inhibited, then the blood vessels or the arteries dilate and blood flow to the blood vessels increases. So blood is shunted to the integumental system from the internal organs and heat is lost by radiation and convection. Acclimatization. With chronic heat exposure, for example, in people living in lowlands, a person can become heat acclimatized. leading to an increased sweat rate, a lower threshold for sweating, and a more dilute sweat composition, conserving electrolytes. Fever or pyrexia, very important. Uh, uh, Temperature, when we talk about temperature. A fever is a regulated increase in body temperature. A fever is not a failure of thermal regulation. And the mechanism is when pyrogens from bacteria or viruses stimulate the immune cells, they release cytokines like the interleukins, and those cytokines circulate in the hypothalamus and they trigger release of prostaglandin E2. Now, prostaglandin E2 acts on the hypothalamic thermostat and it results in rising of the set point for the body temperature. In normal conditions, the set point of body temperature is about 37 degrees Celsius, but following exposure to the pyrogens, the set point may be adjusted to 38, 39, or 40 degrees Celsius. Now the set point is adjusted, then our body perceives it as normal. When it is adjusted to 39 degrees Celsius, for example, our body perceives as if 39 degrees Celsius is normal set point of temperature. So in such conditions, our body initiates the heat conserving and heat producing mechanisms like chills and shivering until the new set point, the higher set point is reached. You may have experienced this kind of questions. Uh, Body temperature increases, so we we experience the fever without sweating. When we measure the body temperature, it may rise. It may be greater than 37 degrees Celsius because during this time the set point is adjusted. So the heat conserving and heat producing mechanisms are activated, but there may not be sweating. Fever, manifestation of fever without sweating is associated with this kind of conditions, with increase in the set point of the body temperature. Living cells and tissues can withstand temperatures from just above freezing, 0 degrees Celsius, up to 45 degrees Celsius, a much broader range than what homeotherms maintain. Homeotherms, as an organism, cannot survive at 0 degrees Celsius. Cold and heat can damage cells by mechanically injuring them and denaturing proteins within the cells. So temperature less than 0 degrees Celsius and greater than 45 degrees Celsius can injure all cells by denaturing their proteins. Temperature profoundly affects biological functions by altering cell membranes and the rates of chemical reactions. Yeah, the abnormalities of body temperature are classified as hypothermia and hyperthermia. Hypothermia is decrease in body temperature below the normal, and hyperthermia is increase in body temperature above the normal. As you can see from the diagram, this is the usual range of the normal in a resting condition, and the average is 37 degrees Celsius. So when the body temperature is maintained within this range, as you can see here, between 36 degrees Celsius up to 31, now we can see that the temperature regulation is effective while we are in fever or in healthy condition. When it is maintained within this range, we can say temperature regulation is effective. But when it exceeds 41 degrees Celsius, temperature regulation is seriously impaired. 41 up to 44, this results in heat stroke, resulting in loss of consciousness and brain lesions. But when body temperature exceeds 45 degrees Celsius, this is the upper limit for survival. The human organism dies when the body temperature exceeds 45 degrees Celsius. And here, our body tries body temperature up to 29.4 degrees Celsius. Within this range, we call it temperature regulation is impaired. But until 29.4 degrees Celsius, our body tries to regulate it. But below 29.4, temperature regulation capacity of that hypothalamus is lost, and the problem of the abnormality with temperature regulation is devastated. And this is the lower limit for survival. 24 degrees Celsius is the lower limit for survival of human beings. Compare the difference. Cells can survive up to 0 degrees Celsius, but as an organism, human can survive up to 24 degrees Celsius. Hypothermia is a condition where the body's core temperature drops to dangerously low level